the best coaches in the game. We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another Bold Call Fantasy Football Podcast. Today, we've got a special NFL playoff edition where we're going to take a look at postseason fantasy contests, postseason betting angles, and the whole kind of broad overview of the NFL postseason from a fantasy and betting perspective. And to help me, as always, I've got the GOAT himself, sports gambler numero uno, a man known by his when he shows up at a Tampa Bay strip club. Say, Mr. Alicia, come to the front of the line. Get ahead of the line. You're in. The girls know him by his first name, John. Statsational. What's up, my man?
Not much, man. Just hanging in there, getting ready. You're getting pumped there. A little playoff action.
They roll out the red carpet for you at the Tampa strip clubs. And, of course,
hopefully they wear masks at that strip club.
No masks.
I have not been to a strip club in quite some time.
I just had such a weird about no protection at the strip club, meaning not wearing a mask, and then I'm not going there.
Masks are the new condoms, right?
Yeah, they're the new wearing protection.
I see a lot of cars out there, and I'm like, man, I don't know if that's the best place to be right now.
Yeah, no. Don't go there. Don't go to the strip club.
No.
And, of course, the NFL encyclopedia himself, a man who knows more about the 2023 NFL actual draft than anyone. Season long says, what's up, my man says?
Dude, NFL playoff leagues, betting angles, all this kind of stuff. This is my favorite time. And it's been a while since we've had the band back together, the trio. So I'm excited for this conversation and to interact with DFS Army members and whoever else might be watching. And let's get right into it, man.
Yeah, so let me break down, because we have a couple of angles that we want to take a look at. First being your season-long fantasy playoffs. Now, there are two ways to go about setting up a league with your friends to do playoff league. First of all, why are you not playing fantasy football? This is why are you not playing fantasy football in the playoffs? You played it all season. You won your league. You lost your league. I don't fucking know. I don't care. But what we've been doing amongst me and my friends, and Seslowsky here is the driver of this, is we do a postseason playoff league every year. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how to set one of those up, and says I'm going to throw that over to you in a minute. But we do a season-long, playoff league, right? Season-long style fantasy playoff league. And now some of the best ball sites are also running tournaments of this style. So there are multiple places. Like I'm looking at Underdog Fantasy right now. They're not they're not sponsoring this episode, so
we'll get
free plug.
They've been kind to us. They've been kind.
Free plug. But they've been running. They're running a tournament. I'm sure some of the other ones are doing it as well. But I know they're running a tournament. $5 to enter. It runs throughout the entire playoffs. So, John, let's talk about the strategy for these type of leagues. You're running a league where you draft once this week, and you have to decide, and you're picking all these players, and it's the same group throughout the playoffs. Obviously, teams get eliminated. So give me some of your thoughts on how to draft for this league, and also a little bit about NFL futures and future betting, and how those two things are similar.
Yeah. So how I would do it, if it's a draft league, and there's a I guess we'll talk about some other different type of leagues. In a draft league, you're of course, just like any other draft league, you're at the mercy of who everyone else picks. So you can only take who you know.
Snake draft.
A snake draft type of league. Yeah. You can't. Which is why I like DFS, where I can pick any player I want. There's a little bit more. I think there's a little bit more to it, but if you're in a league with a lot of people know what they're doing, it makes it harder. But the strategy, what I tend to do, what I like to do is take projections, because we're running throughout the playoffs. And part of the strategy, of course, is not just get the best players, get the player that's going to advance and play the most amount of games. So in order to do that, what I'll do is look at the futures odds and then try to project what's the probability that this team wins one game, which means they'll play 2 and 3 games and 4 games, so on and so forth. And then I'll take those percentages and then multiply it by what I think their per game projections would be. So let's play a player averages about 10 points per game. They've got a 60% chance to win their first game. I'll give them 6 points. They've got a 30% chance to now advance again. They get another 3 points. So then I accumulate them. Those become my point projections, and then I go based off of that. So what that's going to wind up doing is taking some players who are very good, who may be on a weaker team, maybe an Allen Robinson or something like that, who's not projected to go very far. And so in that case, so you'll wind up having traditionally weaker players on better teams. That's the way I go about those sort of things.
I think there's a little caveat there, but there's a little bit of a DFS angle even in these draft leagues, and the DFS angle is not about what's likely to happen, but what's the payoff if something else happens. And I think that's like the big tournament style DFS. So even though you think, like for example, the Tennessee Titans are underdogs in their first game at home, if there's a top heavy prize like there is in our league, where we're only rewarding the top 1 or 2 teams, is it better to stack a team like Tennessee, even in a draft league where everyone else is fading them for the Ravens and for some other teams? So therein lies your DFS. So that's why I love NFL postseason, Geek and Stas, because it does have the best of both worlds. You get the draft, everyone loves drafting, and you could also use a DFS mindset.
Yeah, let me throw this around also to the concept of the best ball league tournament. So if you're in one of these against your friends, so number one, fantasypostseason.com is the site that we use to run these leagues. So if you're watching this and you're like, fuck, I'd like to do that.
They're a good site.
Use that NFLpostseason.com. They set it all up. They're the only site that we found that really does it.
Well, it's
great.
fantasypostseason.com, not NFL. It's just because they do postseason we're giving them a free plug. They're a nice small company. They do postseason for basketball, postseason for all these sports. So it's fantasypostseason.com for a small fee, $25. They'll run your whole league. They have great draft software and everything. So I highly recommend them.
Too much. Pay me, motherfuckers. Then I'll promote you.
Yeah, but they're a good small company, and they're always great customer service. So
they're all right. Very good. But in the underdog fantasy version, so in the best ball tournament version with 5,000 entrants, to go back to your point, everything we do in DFS is about taking a risk. So let's say I'm stuck with Ryan Tannehill, and that was a good example as my quarterback, right? As sometime if that's your guy, you want to stack that team because you want to reduce the number of variables. So one of these underdogs will win. If I'm trying to win a tournament, if I get stuck with, there's no point in building a well-rounded team in this sort of approach. So again, week 1, Tannehill's a good example because they're the underdog most likely to win, I would say, in the first week of the playoffs. They have one of the lower spreads, right? So they have the highest win likelihood, probably. Well, we'll bring those odds up here, but they have the highest win likelihood of win and getting that second game. But essentially, if you're trying to win the big tournament, what if they win the second game? Right?
Like they did last year.
They played a third. So once you took Tannehill, you might as well start to take other pieces from that team. So essentially, the team that's going to win, that's probably going to win a big tournament, will have stacked a surprise team that made it a little bit further than people were expecting. John, how else am I winning a big tournament if I'm not doing that?
No, that's for a big tournament. You're 100% correct. So yeah, we use what we know, and most people watching this are very familiar with DFS. They play DFS. We have to use those same strategies. And what's great this year is we were talking about the sports betting. I did my article. I do an article every year on an analysis of what's gonna, what I'm looking for and who I want to bet to win the Super Bowl. And I think this is one of the most open years I've seen, at least from what it looks like. I thought that way by the eye test. I didn't really think there were any dominant teams this year. There's a lot of very good teams. I don't think there's any dominant teams. And then when I ran the numbers that I run, there's an article. It's a free article that you guys can check out.
The article is on sportsbetarmy.com. and you go to the NFL tab on sportsbetarmy.com under sports, the NFL tab, and you'll find John's complete playoff breakdown. It's a statistical analysis based on John. Bring up some of the factors because there's a lot of numbers in there. John's very much a model-based gambler. So when he's making picks, one of the differences between him and like Joe Schmo me is I look at the board and I'm like, oh, that looks like a lot, but I'm just using my watching the games knowledge and your general donkey knowledge of football to make picks, essentially my gut, which maybe people think is the worst thing to use when you're betting. John uses models exclusively and probably mixed with a little bit of art and gut, but there's a lot of modeling. So explain a little bit of the modeling you did for this playoff as a whole and kind of what your conclusions were in that article.
Yeah, so I love doing this. I consider it a tournament. I mean, it is a tournament. That's the old Parcells line, right? It's about getting in the tournament. So I kind of took something that I've been doing for the NCAA tournament for years and incorporated it into the NFL playoffs. And I try to look for some key factors that have produced winners in the past, teams that have advanced and gone on. So some of them are very, very basic. The original filters that I used to use for this were total yardage differential was one. So you're looking for teams, obviously with the greater yardage differential are the better teams. The teams are positive in turnover differential. I believe there's never been a team with a negative turnover differential to win. I believe it was
to win the Super Bowl.
To win the Super Bowl, or it was negative. I have to go back. There's so many stats.
2 years ago, there was a team there was a team that made the playoffs for the first time in a long time with a negative point differential. It was that Buffalo team. I think it was either last year or the year before.
Point differential you'll get on occasion. Speaking of point scoring, which is basically scoring margin, right? A negative scoring margin. That's what no team with a negative scoring margin. That's one of the factors as well has ever won. So, this year, Cleveland has a negative scoring margin. By the way,
they do have a negative
11 wins, which is unbelievable.
Wait, which team had a negative scoring differential?
Cleveland has a negative scoring margin.
There we go.
With 11 wins, which is unheard of.
And do you know which team? Here's a quick trivia. I heard this. Scott Pianowski of Yahoo tweeted this out, or he was on the radio saying it. What team leads the NFL this year in point differential? Just without looking at it, you guys want to take a guess? Just shout it out.
Leads the NFL. I'm going to go with the Bills.
Okay, what do you think, John?
I just did this yesterday.
So don't from memory. Go ahead, shout it out.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember. It's it was 10. Was it Pittsburgh?
Nope, it is Baltimore.
It's Baltimore, right.
Baltimore, which is surprising, right? I see Geek nodding. Yeah, I would have gotten that wrong too.
Yeah, because their wins have been smashes a lot of the times. Yeah,
yeah,
really interesting. So all right, now let's dive a little bit deeper, John. You've done analysis. The analysis I did was a little more basic than yours. So we're in these leagues together, and what I'm trying to figure out the whole time, because we have a really interesting new dynamic in 2020, Corona bitch, and that's not just the Corona, but the fact that we now have second seeds that won't get a bye week, right? So what that means is we have a real chance for the first time of not just some kind of crapola wild card, but an actual really, really good team that can play a full 3 game. You don't need to. There is no bonus for winning the Super Bowl here. So if, for example, the number 2 seeds, and we have the Saints and the Bills in this situation, if either of the number 2 seeds, who will have home field for 2 of the 3 games, if they just make it to the 3rd game, that's as good as the number 1 seed going to the Super Bowl. So it's a unique situation this season where we basically had an extra Super Bowl team potentially, because 3 games are just as good as 3. And if any of the second seeds make it to the Super Bowl, if you get 4 games in and you don't have the players from those teams, you don't have the money. That's it. That's how it's going to go. So a really interesting dynamic. So what I was doing was I kind of put together, just using the win probability of the first game and the second game, I was able to kind of figure out, all right, how many games is this player likely to play in? And I'm going to tell you kind of what I came up with as the number 2 seeds all have the highest total game likelihood. So both the Saints and the Bills, oddly, project to play about 3 games.
Can I give you a quick note on that before you get deep in? Do you know how many number 1 seeds have won the Super Bowl in the last 20 years?
Won the Super Bowl or
not the 1 seeds, not the one. I should say the team with the best record overall in the NFL in the last 20 years.
Won the Super Bowl or gotten to the Super Bowl?
Has won the Super Bowl. The team with the best in the last 20 years.
It's going to be like a low number, of course. That's mind-shockingly.
So best record, 20 Super Bowls. Based on how you frame the question, I'm going to say 3. That's a guess.
Yeah, it's
it's
low. Go ahead, Kev. It is 5. It's 5. So what we do, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Kevin. You'll get back, but we are so geared towards like, oh my God, Kansas City's the best team. Like whoever's got the best record, they've got to win, and it doesn't always happen. So you have to be open-minded to the fact, and especially in a year like this, where like you said, we only have 2 1 seeds that have a bye. So in these type of pools, you have to be open to these teams winning more games or playing in more games at least than these 1 seeds are.
All right, so let's dive in a little bit there. So obviously, I think strategically you have your number 2 seeds, which have that extra game, and it's a gimme game a lot of the time. If you look at even the matchups week 1, it's not a good looking matchup for their opponents in either of these games. Let me get my where did I put my live odds here? But here we go. So if we look at the first. So you've got the Bills going up against the Colts, 6.5-point favorites week 1. You got to think that the Bills should win this game. Give the Colts a chance. They have a good running game. I kind of broke it down. Every team is like defense good, offense, running game good, passing game bad. I kind of like to make these little mental notes. Bills like offense very good, defense okay. That's kind of how I have them. Colts defense good, offense okay. Bills 6.5-point favorites, likely to win that one. You've got the Saints going up against the Bears, the biggest favorite, borderline a lock win for week 1 for the Saints. So these are teams that you're feeling like you're getting a second game out of them. Then in round 2, these guys are playing the worst seed. So when you're looking at round 2 for a team like the Bills, they're looking at probably I'm thinking
Pittsburgh. They'll probably get Pittsburgh.
Steelers round 2.5
because the other game, Ravens will probably go to Kansas City if they win, or Tennessee if they win will likely go to Kansas City.
Yeah, so you're probably looking. The Browns aren't winning, so you're looking at a game against the Steelers week 2, and again, it feels like the kind of game that the Steelers' strength of their defense is kind of against the run. I don't know what it is anymore. I need to talk about that. What's the story with the Steelers defense, John? Or says, what's the story with the Steelers defense at this point? They've looked pretty bad. They lost a couple players.
It's a tale of 2 seasons. I mean, there was no clear dominant defense at all this year in the NFL. There was good defenses, and they were one of them. But when they lost 2 key guys, they lost was Devin Bush, and they lost Bud Dupree for the season. And Bud Dupree was wreaking havoc as a pass rusher ever since Dupree's been gone. I don't think that the Steelers' defense has looked. They've looked okay, but maybe they're the 12th best defense, which we know in fantasy doesn't mean much for run stopping. So yeah, I would say that they're just as vulnerable as anybody. I don't even know. I would say Washington football team probably has the best defense in all of the NFL playoffs.
Not looking good. Not looking very good for them. But something I found in the NFL is you lose your key players. You lose some key players like the Steelers did, and your team kind of falls off a little bit.
You never know. Yeah, you never know which one is the Jenga piece that collapses the whole defense,
Well, no, what ends up happening is a few games go by and the new guys start to get a little bit better at the role. So like Devin Bush was running the defense. He was making the play calls. And when you lose the play caller a lot of times, that's usually a pretty big hit for your defense. But a few weeks pass, and now the backups start to get comfortable in the role, so the defense starts to get a little bit better. I think the other team that really has an interesting potential player loss to keep an eye on is Jamal Adams and the Seahawks.
Yeah, and that's the opposite. And you guys could speak to that. Is that Seattle's defense was a sieve, and then it's gotten better each week. So they're going again. They're not.
He was hurt. I think he is the key cog on that defense.
Yeah, the two things though with both of those teams, Pittsburgh has played an unbelievably weak schedule this year, and they were a weak undefeated team for however many weeks that was, 10, 11 weeks. It was Seattle, and we talk about this week in, week out when we're doing the DFS. I mean, they just had smash matchups, and now the last few weeks it's been Rams. It's been, the Giants who were decent. We didn't want to target them. There's a lot of these games that we just haven't targeted them. So we haven't been all that shocked with a lot of these games from the Seattle standpoint. Because, and we talk about this with Russell Wilson all the time. When they play a team that's not going to score a lot, they tend to not score a lot as well. So you have to really look at the matchups with Seattle. You touched on Washington possibly being the best defense. I think you might be right there. Well, the Rams. I'll give the Rams the best defense.
The Rams are
right.
definitely better than Washington.
Washington. Here's what I was worried about with Tampa, and it's been lining up for this, and here it came that they were going to play the East winner, and I said, boy, if they get to play Washington, that's the worst matchup for them outside of the Rams, and maybe who knows now the Rams without a quarterback, but I don't like Brady in a matchup where he has to face a team that could get to him, and this has been for years, not just that he's older now. When you can get to him with the front four, that's where he struggled. Miami for years did it to him in New England. The Giants,
in the Super Bowl.
Let me throw the caveat that on the Brady side, though, when the Tampa's defense is good, if the other team can't score, they might moot the scoring of the Bucks a little bit. But like Washington can't score, and they're not going to score against a good defense. They're a team that is not going to. You have to look at my full philosophy on the playoffs is you see the best foot forward of these teams. You can, number one, the beautiful thing about the playoffs. One of the reasons I've done well in playoff DFS, for example, is you don't have the letdowns. Like the teams come ready to play, and you see the best version. Most of the time, you see the best version of the team, right? So here's what I expect. When you talk about Tampa, I expect them to play very good defense in the playoffs and do what they do. I expect them to stop the run in the playoffs because that's what they're good at. And, Tom Brady to do his thing. So you take a team like Washington, if they were to see the Bucks, like in this game, they're not going to be able to score because they're a bad offense. Bad offense versus good defense equals disaster in that game. So as much as Washington's good defense could keep it close, it doesn't lead to Washington winning this game. So let's bring that around to some betting angles. In your article, John, you talked about, and then I want to get into actual season-long postseason strategy for some of these leagues that we're going to be in because we got to get at all of it. But in your article, you had a couple of potential futures bets. They're all focused on the NFC. Why is that?
Yeah, it's rare. I don't think I've ever done that where I just took teams from one
and
conference.
You can name the teams. That's fine.
It's in the article, and I encourage everyone to take a look at it. I took Green Bay, New Orleans, and Tampa. Green Bay at plus 450, New Orleans at plus 750, and Tampa plus 1,000. Now, I just talked about how I did not like that matchup with Washington, but I do agree with everything you said, where Washington is going to struggle to score as well. I think that Tampa game, boy, if Tampa looks good offensively, I think everyone needs to watch out. If they just come out there and they're able to score on Washington 28 plus points, and they look comfortable doing it, and they kind of, and I don't expect Washington to score much. This could be a scary team, especially, again, if they don't play the Rams without the quarterback. I thought the Rams were another team that could give them problems. There's no other team. I know the Saints are pretty decent defense, but there's no other team that's that dominant defensively that I think they'll struggle with from that point on. Getting if they can get by Washington and look good, they're gonna be scary. But I kind of knock out a bunch of teams, and I don't know if you're familiar with the SRS rankings on Pro Football Reference. They have their own system. This year, every single team, almost all the teams are below where what the average Super Bowl winner is. It's just it's an unbelievable year. The only team that's actually has a rating above is the Rams. Believe it or not, the Rams differential yardage differential, I didn't realize it is the highest. in the league just because their defense has kept teams to under 5,000, which is like
Such a
unheard
good
of.
defense.
5,000 yards. Yeah, no one does that anymore, and they've had over 6,000 yards. I think their season they were plus 1,500 in yards overall on the year, which is very good. But this year is tremendous. One other note that I wanted to get out there before I forget: home field advantage this year was actually as close to zero as you could possibly get. It was actually slightly negative. Home teams were slightly under on point. I track the point differential on home team. It's usually, between 2 and 3 points every year. It's dropped through the years, and we've talked about this because of replay. This year, without the fans, it was negative 0.09, I believe.
So you're saying there wasn't even like a 1 point home field advantage?
Not even one.
The travel, the not sleeping in your own bed, all that kind of stuff?
It's a negative. Home teams were actually negative in point differential, 0.09. So it's basically zero.
These guys were happy to get away from their wives, it sounded like.
Can I point out, though, John? We talked about that on episode 1 of the Vegas lines and betting angles breakdowns this year. That was a major topic of the conversation, that you thought because of the no fans that the home field advantage was essentially going to be zero. To watch it play out over the course of an entire season, even now, it was mentally difficult for me, and I didn't do this throughout my entire season of essentially DFS, of looking at games and ignoring who the home team was. I didn't do that. I can't. I'm like, oh, he's at home. That's good. But obviously, that was something that didn't matter. So really, really fascinating.
Yeah, so just be careful when you're looking at who can go into Green Bay? Well, it's not that intimidating to be on the road right now.
But hold on one second. Stop, though. So I think Green Bay might be the exception to that. You saw what Tennessee, they looked like they had never driven on a snowy road before last week, and that was an anecdotal observation. But a lot of the players did look like it was the first time that they had, they were slipping all over the place. They just it looked slower. That Green Bay looked more comfortable in that snow.
Teams that have, I don't have the number in front of me, but I do know teams that play, like the Florida teams that play in the warmer weather, in freezing or sub-freezing temperatures against the spread. So I always like to do it against the spread because that's where you really determine if it's true. They do underperform against the spread. So I agree, there is an advantage if they get to play a warm weather team. There is an advantage to Green Bay, Chicago teams. Well, Chicago won't be at home, but teams that have a chance to be at home.
Tampa Bay in round 2 would be going to Green Bay.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
Listen, Tom Brady knows how to play in the cold. You deflate the ball a little bit. Got to do a little deflation. Get a little better grip. You know what I'm saying? Take a little air out. You're good. He knows how to do it.
Yeah, Tom Brady over the last couple of years, though, in December has not been good. We saw last year what he looked like against Miami in the regular season to knock them out of the bye. We saw what happened against Tennessee. It's but he has showed up in the playoffs.
Overinflated football, though, is what you're talking about there.
Yeah, but I'm just saying is that I know Brady throughout his career
got a little air out. All right, let's get into. I'm on the clock. First pick, second pick, third pick. I'm on Underdog Fantasy. I'm playing against my friends. I watch this show and I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to play one of these leagues. I want some more fantasy football action. I'm on the clock. Let's kind of go through what you're going to do in the early rounds of your postseason fantasy league. You're on the clock early. So you're on the clock. Pick number 1 says, what are you thinking here? Mahomes, overwhelming favorite to get to the Super Bowl and win. Is it a no-brainer?
I think there's 2 picks when you're picking in a draft style league. I think that, Mahomes is definitely a safe pick because he's the favorite to play 3 games and he is Pat Mahomes. I think the Chiefs always show up in the Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes short era. These guys show up. They don't no-show for games. There's a baseline of points, but if it's a top heavy prize and it's not, Josh Allen is probably the play because he's the only one of those high upside QBs that can get 4 games. And if he fails against Kansas City, if he doesn't advance, he still gets the same number of games as Pat Mahomes. So straight up, Josh Allen versus Pat Mahomes, they're both likely to get 3 games. Which one of those quarterbacks do you think is better for fantasy? That's a decision that you have to make. Also,
let's look at the lot. Let's look at the. You're talking about the fantasy. You make an interesting point, especially if I'm in some sort of a like a best ball version of one of these where it's a tournament, not beyond just 10 or 12 of your friends. So, John, strategically, I'm going to bring up the NFL futures numbers to win the Super Bowl. So the Bills are plus 600, the Chiefs are plus 200, right? So doing some quick math, plus 200, that gives the Chiefs about what, a 30-ish%? I wish it was to get to the Super Bowl. Yeah, here we go. To win the AFC Championship. This is better. All right, because we don't care if they win or lose the Super Bowl. All I give a shit about is, do I get 4 games or 3? So the odds of the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl, minus 105, 50-50. That's for the 3rd game. The odds of the Bills winning, getting to the Super Bowl, meaning playing a 4th game, is plus 310. What does that translate to? About 20%?
About 25%.
You take the VIG out of there, 20% chance.
Yeah, 20% if you want to take the VIG out. Yep.
So strategically, it's very interesting what you said. Says if I'm in a giant tournament like the Underdog Fantasy one, where there's thousands of people in there, do I take the 50-50 odds of getting a 3rd game, or do I take the 20% odds of getting a 4th game / winning the whole fucking thing? Because that's how you win it.
Like I said, it's not about what's most likely to happen. It's about what's plausible and what's the payoff if.
Well, again, the way to do it is you just, it's an expected value. Again, if you think if Josh Allen scores, let's say 25 points per game on average, you're going to multiply that by the percentage of him winning each game, and then add it up. And that's how you figure out who's better, Mahomes or Allen. Let's say they both average 25. You just multiply those, add up the cumulative points. I believe it's probably Allen. And that's my boy, Chris, by the way, who loves to make fun of me.
And your friends are awesome in the chat. I'm loving them. And I'm worried about my language with your niece. How old is she? Please let her be.
Yeah, no, she's too young for the language, but that's okay.
Oh boy, okay.
All right. But also, John, just think about this without even looking at your expected, just anecdotally, which one of the 2 quarterbacks, based on this year's performance, is more likely to hit a 38-pointer in a single game, Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes?
I mean, it's been Allen, I think. Right now. I think Allen's more. I mean, if I'm picking one, I'm taking Allen. I mean, so if you,
you're legitimately saying, hold up, guys, this is a big thing. This is a very big thing. You're legitimately saying that if you were on the clock, John, Alessia, you're on the clock, pick number 1. And you have a choice between Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. You're taking Josh Allen. Let me clarify that.
Yes.
Josh Allen has a higher. So in my expected games value rating, Josh Allen is close to 3. It's like 2.8 games expected. Whereas I have Mahomes at 2.5. So when you multiply that by what their average points per game are, you're going to come up with Allen. The straight value dollar is more on Josh Allen. There's no doubt in my mind because he has the potential.
In the league that we're in, Geek, and me, you, and John, I took Mahomes at 1-1, and I regretted it the minute I did it because all week I was thinking about Josh Allen. Again, it's not that Mahomes is a bad pick. It's that when I'm trying to win the first prize, I think that Josh Allen is the path least resistant. I think that Mahomes has probably a higher floor in the playoffs, but I don't think there's even a question that Josh Allen has the higher ceiling.
So that's amazing, by the way, and this is big difference because again, what's Allen's floor is kind of like
still high
to Mahomes' ceiling in the sense of I kind of see Allen winning that 2nd game. I'm pretty confident about it. So him getting a 3rd game is very likely, whereas Mahomes probably going to get a 3rd game. I would say about the same to get a 3rd game, but no chance for a 4th. So that's really the major difference there. That's big. So let's
take a 0. When you draft Mahomes in week 1, what's your fantasy point production in week 1? A 0.
Yeah, no, but I mean, in week Super Bowl, I'm getting points, and you're probably not. So, okay, so let's flip it around. Now let's go to the NFC because your first decision is all right. The first 2 picks are made in your league. Somebody took Josh Allen probably, and somebody took Mahomes. Now we go over to the NFC. You've got Aaron Rodgers looking great, home field throughout. Green Bay, we love them. Then you've got the Saints as the number 2 seed, potential for 3. Also, I'd say less potential for the 3rd game than the Bills, which is why these guys are on the 2nd, even though I think Super Bowl is probably. Well, let's take a look. You know what? Why am I guessing? I'll give you the numbers here. Hold on. NFC side, Packers. Here we go. That's exactly what I said is going to come true here. Packers plus 160 to go to the Super Bowl. So definitely not as good as the Chiefs right there. Lower chance, only 2 games, potentially. A little scarier. Saints plus 275, so slightly better than what we had with the Bills, which was plus 310. Not a whole lot better, but slightly better. So the Saints are the number 2 seed that has the higher likelihood of making it all the way to the Super Bowl. So again, John, pick number 3. I know you're a very stringent follower of these guidelines. Drew Brees game expectation maybe over 3.
Yeah, where it gets tricky.
The highest on the board for the
where it gets tricky though is Brees scoring now, because now you're not talking about the difference between Mahomes and Allen is probably minimal as far as on a per game, but the difference between Rodgers and Brees, even Brady and Brees right now, is fairly significant. So that's really where you have to start multiplying. So I think you're correct in the Brees expectations, but the points, where's he getting the points from? Like the point, he hasn't done it nearly as much this year and in years past.
Taysom Hill comes in.
Right.
Our league actually counts Saints quarterback. It goes by quarterback, not by individual player. So on the fantasy postseason site, you actually get the points for Taysom Hill, which I think
you could set it either way. By the way, you could set it to individual or team QB.
Okay, so the way we have it set up in our specific league, but that's not. I'm more looking at the best ball leagues for people, or how are they going to run it. In that case, you wouldn't get any points for Taysom Hill, but you're right. Yeah, Brees not been that great, which is why he wasn't in the conversation ahead of Allen or Mahomes. I think you've got to have both those guys first. So pick number 3. You've got Aaron Rodgers with a game expectation. You're almost guaranteed 2 games, but he's only got a plus 160 odd, or about a 40%-ish odd of making it to the Super Bowl. 40% of the time he's going to get there.
By the way, Statsational's on the clock in our league. I think he should be forced to make a pick live.
I just got a message in my ear. I'm like, by the way, so I was in the other room. I had that site up in my and at like at 12:30 last night. I have some guy yelling at me from my office, and I'm like, who's talking? It was that stupid site telling me that I'm on the clock.
Oh, you are on the clock.
Yeah, absolutely scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, you can change it to a female voice if you want, by the way.
Yeah, I'm much more used to female voice yelling from the other room than the male voice, obviously.
You could change it to a Long Island accent, I think, too.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But
change it to a Long
No. It's a joke.
My wife can be yelling at me during the fantasy. What? Don't do this.
That gets old. That gets old after round 3 quickly.
So is Stat going to pick on the clock while we're on live on air?
I was trying. Let me think a little bit. I don't even know who's up. But I did take in that league. Okay. Yeah, I took the I don't know what do I have, 6th or 7th pick, something like that. And I wound up, and we could take 2 of each position. I wound up taking the Saints quarterbacks because of the Taysom Hill in that league, all quarterback, and he counts as a quarterback. So in that league, it made sense. If I'm picking 3 though, I think I got to take Aaron Rodgers. Just because of the higher potential per game. I would like Brady. I just don't like the matchup in the first round. So I think Brady's going to struggle to score a lot of points in that first game. So I think that limits him. I think Brees on the whole, just not going to score a lot of, even if they go all the way to the Super Bowl, won't score a lot of points. So I'll take my chances with Rodgers there.
There it is. So you roll the dice with Rodgers with a lower per game expectation, because as a quarterback himself, Rodgers is just a much better scoring quarterback, which is something that we know compared to Drew Brees this season. All right, so where is the point now? You have a couple more. There's only a few more wide receivers left with even a second game expectation. I have a real problem with taking Russell Wilson, because that first game they are going up against the Rams, and you just tend to not put up a big score. I could see them losing it. And so I don't love that. At some point here, I think you've got to shift over. At this point, I would say, once this 4-pack is off the board, that's where you start to look at, all right, do I want to take another quarterback that's got like a 2-game, like a Russell Wilson, a Lamar Jackson, who if clear answer here look really good, or do I want to shift over and start to take position players from these teams that are expected to go a long way? So now you start to look at your Alvin Kamara's, your Devontae Adams, your Stephon Diggs, my favorite of them all. at this point, or at least that's what I did. Says, what do you think here? Is this the point after the first 4 quarterbacks are off the board where you're shifting, or is there another quarterback that's worth a pick over, let's say, a guy like Devontae Adams or Travis Kelsey, of course.
There you go. So if your league mandates starting a tight end, and if there's any, and this point gets hammered home, if there's any sort of premium scoring like 1.5 PPR or 2-point PPR, Travis Kelsey is the next pick. His expected point value is probably equal to that of Mahomes or slightly under, I'm guessing, just by what he's produced on the year. I mean, I think a 20-point baseline scoring for Travis Kelsey, you could lock it in with some upside for more. He gets rushing touchdowns, Travis Kelsey. They give it to him on the 1-yard line to act as and they've had a lot of trouble with their running back scoring this year. So those little plays to Travis Kelsey do occur. Also,
one of the best things about Travis Kelsey this year has been the struggles of the Chiefs running game. That's why I think Travis Kelsey has had the year that he's had. So what you just said.
And the other thing you could do,
the team can't run the football and they throw it to the tight end. That's how it goes.
And he gets like those little pop passes and little like reverse handoffs too. But the other team that I think, and this isn't a hot take, but the Ravens look good as a lower seed instead of a favorite this year. They have come on in the last few weeks. They are putting it on. Hollywood Brown has now earned his nickname of being Hollywood Brown instead of some sort of 170-pound PP receiver here. The Ravens look like they're firing on all things. I think that you could, if you want to go quarterback, Lamar, no quarterback in the entire playoff. I could see, well, maybe Josh Allen, but I could see Lamar Jackson. I mean, he was 22 years old last year and won the MVP. I mean, people have written him off that he's done. He's just getting started. He's younger than Joe Burrow. I think that I could see that this is the year that no one sees it coming and that Lamar Jackson just takes control of the NFL playoff.
I think part of the issue with Lamar Jackson here is just people think that first round matchup is tough, and he could not make it past. But yeah, I mean, the Ravens, first of all, Hollywood earned the nickname of coming from Hollywood, Florida. Like, what the fuck? What's special about that? Yeah. But as far as I just needed to point out that he's called that not because he's a flashy guy, but because he's from Hollywood, Florida. But I wanted to, with the Ravens, you're right. First of all, great defense. Not good. Very good. Great.
Plus, they're not an all-timer, but they're
no, not an all-time, but an excellent defense. Right up there with the best. I would say you put them just one notch below the Rams, but with an offense that's much, much more potent than the Rams offense. They have a real chance to make noise. I don't see why the Ravens couldn't win against any team in this playoffs and make it all the way. John, do you have any interest in a futures? Like, if you can get Ravens, they're plus 575.
To win it all or to win the AFC?
To win the AFC.
Yeah, the AFC. I was very, very close to taking them to win the Super Bowl. I was debating it, but I wanted to leave it. So the way my Super Bowl bets right now, I've got just under half a unit risk to win a unit, and I just wanted to kind of leave it at that much risk. But Baltimore was real close, and if in our league you guys are trying to mush my second pick, I did take the Lamar Jackson, basically Baltimore quarterbacks as it is in our league, as my second pick. So, and for the reason you guys said, I think that's a potential team. By the time we got there, we were just talking about this before, because we've got 12 teams in that league. Man, there's not a lot left when you get to. I'm drafting right in the middle. There wasn't a lot left, and I said, you know what, this is a good flyer type of pick here, because that's a team that I think potentially could get to the Super Bowl with a quarterback who has huge upside potential. I think that was I thought, obviously that's why I made the pick. I thought it was a worthwhile pick at that spot, and I do agree. I think Baltimore, well-coached team, good defense. They could run the ball. They're passing generally, and if you go read my article, you'll see more about that. But you want to have teams that are good at both passing efficiency and defensive, of course, defensive pass efficiency. That is limiting the opponent in efficiency. Also, quarterback rating differential is a very big one, and they were lacking a little bit in both of those categories, which kind of left me off them. But I would not be shocked at all if they get to the Super Bowl.
Lamar's looked different though over the last month than he did in the first 8 weeks of the season. So
injury John, you called it in season when we talked about it. These running quarterbacks get a little dinged up. The calf is hurt. Something you hear about it. Well, he's fine. Just what we saw with Kyler Murray the last basically month and a half of the season, where he went from being this dynamic, incredible running quarterback that could do it all to kind of sucks now.
John, ever since Lamar came back from taking that number 2 poop in that game,
yes,
he's looked at least 3 pounds lighter.
Yeah, I've cramped up during some Players Club episodes.
Yeah, I've had a lot of great golf rounds right after they're making an emergency run to the men's room. So yeah, I understand it.
All right, so we're still running through our scenarios here for our fantasy postseason leagues, and we've kind of established that the Bills and the Saints have the highest number of game expectations. Chiefs and Packers, both most likely teams to make it to the Super Bowl, but because of the bye, they get a little bit slightly less game expectation. Now we're looking at some of these teams that have 2-game potential. You just talked a little bit about Lamar and the Ravens, which I like a lot. Says you were really high on Tom Brady potentially and those Bucks to make a little bit of a run. Again, the NFC probably seems a little bit more wide open. So assuming the Bucks win their first round matchup against Washington, which doesn't look like a gonna score a lot of fantasy points game. Round 2, who are we looking at, and what's that matchup look like for Tom Brady and company? TB12.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady in the playoffs, right? I mean, you got to say anything more? If anyone could make a nice run, it's a motivated Brady playing with arguably the best weapons he's had since 2007 during the Moss and Welker year. So you were giving me Tom Brady. By the way, do either of you know, without looking it up, just spit it out quick, how many touchdowns Tom Brady threw this year?
40.
40 is the number. 40 is the number.
He had 40 for the 48. It was the 40 plus crowd.
It was the quietest 40 touchdown season I have ever seen in my life. It was 4,800 yards and 40 touchdowns. It's literally his second best season ever. I mean, he had that
run, man.
He's
so great. A, Bruce Arians, great offense. B, team can't run. What's worse about this team than any Patriots team that has went to the Super Bowl? Let me just throw this out there. What's worse about defensively? Just as good. Offensively, historic for Tom Brady. The only thing that this team cannot do this year very well is run the football, but they haven't needed to. And which Patriots team was that great at running the football either? They had freaking Sony Michel stinking it up for years. They just had a lot of guys, and they just focused on it a lot. But one nice thing about this Bucs team is they let Brady be Brady. They let him do his thing, which is throw the football a lot and use his talent to try to advance.
Well, it took time. It took some time for this team to, first of all, for Brady to totally pick up this offense. Now you've got all these wide receivers. Then you bring in Antonio Brown midseason. So a lot of pieces were shifting around for this team, and I think it took them a while before Arians and Brady were able to get on the same page. I don't know. Do you remember the last Saints game? They lost that game to the Saints. They lost both games, right, to the Saints this year. The last game they lost, Romo was doing the game, and Romo said after the game that he saw something different with the Tampa offense in that game that was really promising. He liked what he saw. From that point on, they've really been rolling. So, I'm going to trust what Romo sees as to what I can see. But he saw something in that game, and it's really paid off right now. Whatever they're doing, they're clicking on offense. That's why I said if they go out, I don't know if they're Saturday or Sunday, but if they go out this weekend. And
Saturday night, they're the
Saturday night game. Yeah, that's the typical Brady game, right? He always gets that Saturday night game. If they just run it up, and Washington can't hold them down. If Washington can't hold them down, it's going to be scary. And I'm really looking forward to them against Green Bay.
Give me a betting angle on that one, man. Listen.
Before John gives his expert angle, I can give you. It doesn't matter how many points it is. This is a Tampa Bay blowout. I would take anything under 10. I know it's like 8 right now, but anything under 10, take Tampa Bay. And again, I would love to hear John's actual statistical number breakdown, but that's one that I picked off the slate right away. It's
the first game that pops in my head too. I said to myself, good defense versus bad offense, great offense versus good defense. This is what you want to see in the play. This is what leads to a smash game in the playoffs a lot of times.
The other
Great defense against bad offense, especially.
The other quote when John was talking about like Romo making observations about the team is that we've heard this one too. And Brady was talking about how Gronk looks exactly like 2015 Gronk at this point. He's clicking on all cylinders. Brady and Gronk, to me, they are the team that I thought they were going to be the obvious underdog play. You talked about the whole segment led off with why was I targeting Tampa Bay as a stackable team in these type of leagues for the exact reasons is that you could totally see the path to victory for them.
I am going, as far as betting this game, I'm not going to be taking this game. It's only 8, which I assume you guys love, 8.5, depending on where you're looking. I'm going to hold on. I think the game's going to be a little tight. I like Tampa to win the game. I think the game's going to be a little tighter. I don't typically bet against Brady. That's been a losing proposition over his entire career against the spread. It has not panned out well. So I need a really good reason to bet against Brady. I don't have it here, so I don't have anything that I love in this game. But Brady in this, I just don't. I've seen it too many times with Brady offenses. That offense with Randy Moss looked pretty damn good too. And they only scored 17 points or whatever it was against the Giants. I think this is a game. I think they don't score more than 24. I don't think in this game. That's going to be my opinion. So I think the 8.5 is going to be a little much for me to lay on this game. I'm just going to kind of let it play out. I would lean to the under. I know you guys, I definitely disagree. But I would lean this game. If I had to, if I was in some sort of a office pool or something like that, I would actually take Washington plus the points.
Yeah, you hit it on the head though. I had the final score prediction is 24-10, so it's under, and it's with the
I see Washington. Their offense is so epically bad, and they're so much a running team. And when you add in the fact that the Bucs do have an elite cornerback, they have very good corners across the board. They're all ranked well, but one of their guys, whose name escapes me as usual, and I can't remember his fucking name, but one of their corners is elite. And really, the Washington Football Club, all they have is one good wide receiver on the team. The rest of their pass catching group is made up of running backs and tight ends and just ne'er-do-wells, basically. So, J.D. McKissick, I'm not worried about him. Like Logan Thomas, I'm sorry, not that good. So it's really just Terry McLaurin and Gibson, the running back. But Gibson, the Bucs defense negates your running back more often than not. So you're left with Terry McLaurin. But again, guy whose name I can't remember, elite cornerback. Come on, man. Somebody give me.
When Alex Smith is the quarterback, though, we know that McLaurin's not that good anyway.
Yeah, he's not even that good with Alex Smith. But then you add in the fact that he will be covered. Well, now you can make me look up the goddamn name of the quarterback. He'll be well covered. So, between all of those things, it doesn't bode well for Washington in this game at all. All right, let's get. I don't want to get too deep into that because we're really supposed to be talking here about the postseason and sort of these strategies. So the Bucs get a real shot once you've picked Tom Brady, right? At some point along the way, now you want to start to pair them up. Not the easiest team to stack, I would say. And well, in some ways is easy. In some ways, I think some of these players are going to fall. Antonio Brown coming off of 16 targets in week 17. 16. He is officially part of this offense. Evans came out of that game. What's the story with Evans, Says? Do we expect him back for week 1?
I don't know. And if he is, in what capacity? We've seen Mike Evans deployed as a decoy many times. He's going to have to fall to a value, and what I mean is like a 4th or 5th round pick. When I was plotting to stack Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Brady, it was certainly the other 2 receivers in Gronk and even Ronald Jones that I was targeting. Mike Evans, I'm okay not having that piece. Of course, he has the touchdown upside, but that injury looked enough for me. There's too many other good players on that team you can go for. And like I said already, that we've already seen Mike Evans be a decoy in many games for Tampa Bay.
That does happen. So,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. From a strategy standpoint, though, if you are doing a league like this, you have to be willing to reach potentially, because like you said, you want to start stacking teams because that's how I like to do these, where I want to stack the team because if my team makes it and I get 3 games out of that team, I'm going to have a really good chance of winning that league. So don't get yourself too caught up once you start getting into these later rounds in projections, because the projections are fairly meaningless. You just need, you're not going to win.
Warm body.
If you took Kansas City and they lose the first game, if you took Mahomes, I should say, they lose that first game. I mean, you're not winning anyway. So this is where you have to start taking the Hardmans and the lesser pieces on that team.
And Sammy Watkins,
the Watkins, and then if you're looking at Tampa,
when you're 100%, so
you need the Rollins perhaps. So, you're going to need the lesser players on those teams. So you're going to be bypassing the Henrys and maybe Devontae Adams, guys like that. I mean, those guys are going to go early. I
feel like on the underdog on that format. Just to be clear, like on that format of especially the best ball, even in the 12-person friends and family or a 6-person friends and family, the smaller the league, the less important some of these things are. But as you get to the giant contests, you really have to have a stack team. I don't think you're winning against 5,000 other teams if you don't stack. Essentially, there are ways where if you didn't stack both Super Bowl winners, but if any teams are making it 4 games or 3 full and it was possible to stack them, and you don't have them stacked, you ain't winning. So at some point, if you took Lamar Jackson and you're making a decision, and this is where I think you were going, John. And you're making a decision between like somebody who looks pretty good, like a wide receiver that looks pretty good, like an Antonio Brown or Hollywood Brown, you got to go Hollywood, right? You got to go. It's more important to pair up your sort of underdog play. If you make a play that Lamar, they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, we're going to play those plus 575 odds that the Ravens make it all the way. You're playing it. Play it all the way out. Make sure you get Andrews on that team. Make sure you get Brown on that team. Make sure you get their defense or kicker very, very late. You want to. It's really hard to choose 2 like 15% possibility situations in the same lineup and have them both happen. So you want to choose one because one negates the other. If I'm taking Lamar Jackson, then grabbing a bunch of guys from the Titans just makes no sense whatsoever. You ain't winning shit. Don't do it. You've eliminated that team. I don't care if Derrick Henry's sitting there staring at your face in the 3rd round. You're like, I don't care. I'm not taking this fucking guy.
In our draft, he went in the 2nd round. I was surprised at that.
Henry?
Yeah, he went. Both copies went in the. We play with. And for those listening, we play in a league where we have 2 copies of each player available in a 14-team league. And Derrick Henry went. Both copies of him went in the 2nd round of our draft.
Our draft is filled with nutless monkeys, as you know,
including the 3 sitting here right now.
Yeah, they're all. So I'm going to bring it around. Strategy says to defense and kicker. If I took a defense, I mean, I know Mrs. Seslowsky took a defense in the 2nd round. I thought it was a questionable decision at best.
No, that was a mistake.
It was a misclick. So if I took a defense anywhere before the last round, did I already lose my draft? Am I already dead?
I don't think so. I think that if you can somehow pull a stack together, and you want to complete that stack or add to that stack with a defense or a special teams guy, I think in our we're doing a 12-round draft, which includes drafting 2 kickers and 2 defenses. I think any time in the late single-digit rounds, again, you might have a lower expected points per game, but if you can get a couple extra games out of those guys, I don't think, again, would I do it? I'm not sure, but I don't think it's out of the question as it would be in your regular season long leagues where you can add and drop. I mean, once you just want, like John said earlier, warm bodies.
John, what's your take on kicker and defense here? Last 4 rounds, 100%? Or is there a point where you're taking one of those, like it's kicker, defense, last 4 rounds? Or is there some scenario where you're taking one, maybe here's one thing says that you've shown me in season-long leagues. Sometimes when you grab in that, not the last 4 rounds, but like the 5th round, in other words, 1 round before that, if you just take your favorite of that group, like your favorite kicker, then you don't really lose anything because everybody else in those, like that player that you might have taken there is going to drop anyway because everybody else is taking all their kickers. So, John, strategically, how does this work? Is there ever a time when, for example, with in 5 rounds to go, I'm starting on my kickers and my defense, or even 6 rounds to go, because you say, hey, everybody else is going to need them, so I can wait on these players. They'll probably be there in the last round, and I can get some slightly better kickers or defenses. Like, how are we dealing with that situation?
Yeah, again, this is different than playing in a regular season-long league, where in a league like that, I'm just waiting till the end because, I mean, you have no idea. Like, we just don't know what the best defense is going to be, what the best kicker is going to be. And not that we definitely are guaranteed to know in this type of format, but again, we want to start stacking teams, and stacking in this case, it's going to include defenses and kickers. So I want certain teams. I'm not really looking at the player. I might want certain teams who are going to, I think, are going to advance. And in order to get that, you may have to reach a little bit in order to do that. So I don't mind maybe going around earlier than you normally would for kicker and defense in these type of formats. I'd say what's going to wind up happening, though, you're going to get a defense. It's going to be unpredictable. There's going to be a defense that just has a great game, scores a touchdown, a couple of touchdowns, and they'll be the defense that's going to carry you. But we've got to take the percentage. We're going to take the best. We're going to take the best probabilities here, and we're going to look for the defenses and the kickers on those teams that we think are just going to advance or play the most amount of games.
Here's my full thought on it, and I hate to share it with you fucks because you're wearing.
It's not Brees, by the way, not Brees. It's Brees and Hill.
I know. I was about to do that. But, yeah, I'm simplifying. Yeah, I'm simplifying.
Yeah.
My take on this is kicker is way more important than defense, because you can get all 4 games out of a defense and not get a ton. Like, they don't put up that many points because this is the NFL playoffs and we don't have bad teams in it. Almost every
my scoring system. It's 18 points for a touchdown for the defense.
It's what?
18 points for a touchdown and for a defense. I'm only kidding. Look at just kidding.
Just ruined the league. And, no, I mean, so in general, I think kicker is more important. When I look at my projections, specifically for this league, the ones that I kind of put together based on multiplying average scoring by the number of games, like I do a very simple projection, right? Take the number of games, and I multiply that by the average score of that player. There's a legitimate points difference between, again, a 3-game expectation guy, Will Lutz, Tyler Bass, Ryan Suckup. I don't even like to say their names. Bill's kicker,
Harrison Butker. Kicker, as I call him.
Yeah, there we go. No, Butker, that's who it was. I said Suckup. Yeah, Casey kicker, Buffalo kicker, New Orleans kicker, all the and Mason Crosby, Green Bay kicker. All these guys with 2.5, they have a legitimately different. They have like 10 or 12 point, maybe even a 15 point gap in scoring expectation between them and some of the 1.5ers, your 1.5 group. So essentially there is a real, that 15 points could be the difference between winning the league and not, especially when you have to take 2 guys. So when you compare that to, let's say, a late tight end that you might have to take, which, you're taking these really crappy guys that might get you zeros, or a late wide receiver, like you're looking at, like, again, the not even, you're looking at like the Gabriel Davises of the world, or the DeMarcus Robinsons, or Martez Valdez-Scantlings. So when you get to that point, there's a real possibility that taking Saints kicker, instead of like, let me throw a name out there, but like, instead of like, Alan Lazard or a Corey Davis, who we like but might only get 1 game, or one of these guys like a David Moore from Seattle, the late wide receivers that'll still be going in some of these leagues. There are real, and especially tight end, where you're talking about like the Dawson Knoxes and the Jonnu Smiths of the world. You might say, you know what, I don't want to take Jonnu Smith here. I'm going to grab, Saints kicker here and try to get 2.8 or 3.1 games out of this guy. You know what I'm saying?
Are they the only dome team that's going to play? Because they'll get 2 dome games at a minimum.
Yeah. No. They're the only dome team that's going to play multiple games. Obviously, it's Green Bay and it's Kansas City. So and Buffalo. So no, it's only the Saints that are going to be playing at home twice potentially in the dome. And yeah, kickers in the dome, great. But I'm just going to say I want a kicker on a team that scores a lot that's going to get a lot of games, because a kicker, you can't guarantee me that the Saints or any of these defenses will score more than 3 points in most of these games. So you can get 3 games out of a defense and get 9 points out of them total.
Also, something that I would be interested in to hear John's take on, and he may not have the numbers handy because I'm springing this on him, but there are teams now in the modern NFL that on 4th and 3, instead of attempting a 50-yard field goal, a 48-yard field goal, go for it. And Kansas City's one of them. I miscalculated greatly this year Harrison Butker's value, not accounting for the amount of times that Kansas City will go for it on 4th and 5 rather than kick a 48-yard, 49-yard field goal. So I think that is something to take into account.
Yeah, I mean, Tomlin's been allergic to kickers for a while. Sometimes he's one of those guys. We haven't even talked about Pittsburgh all that much. The guys who it's going to tend to be the guys who are into the analytics more. I know the Colts are pretty big on the analytics. I don't have the numbers in front of me as far as field goal attempts, but yeah, generally it's going to be the smarter coaches. Guys like Arians aren't really big analytics guys, but yeah, that's what you want to look for as well. Yeah, so that's a good point. But just go look up the numbers. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, but look at field goal attempts per game. That'll give you a fair idea of the guys who go for these long field goals and the guys who don't.
Now, John, I'm going to ask you this live on air. Do you have another block of time for a round 1 breakdown with me, a little Geeks Vegas line action after this?
I might be able to squeeze in a few minutes.
But you better make your pick first.
When we get off of here, I'm going to go.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up here. We will be back shortly with a full Week 1 Geeks Vegas lines, betting angles, and DFS show. Myself and John, we're going to kick Seslowsky out for that one. And we'll take a look at the overall NFL playoff slate, DFS-wise. That's going to wrap it up, though, for this fantasy postseason episode of the Bowl Calls podcast. So
we can come back and do a round 2 of this also, for next weekend. If you'd like, we can come back and kind of see where people are, where we were right.
Or maybe we'll have you on for a Geeks Vegas line episode where we'll break down the DFS slates. But guys, for those of you who watch this, you can, so far from what I've gathered, you can go to Fantasy Postseason and set up a league with your friends there. Really, really great to do. 6 people is all you need. You can get it up to 12. We did 14 with a double version, but 12 is fine. 6 is great. You can go to Underdog Fantasy. They're doing the best ball leagues. I'm definitely going to jump in on those. Like I said, not sponsored, but I think I can smash it. Use the strategy we talk about here. When you're on Underdog Fantasy, you're trying to attack that tournament. Once you've picked that, you're not winning that without stacking. Period. You will not win. Do not do it. So when you're in that, make sure that when you build either, it doesn't have to be the 2 quarterbacks, by the way. You could stack a team without having their quarterback. You can do it. So if I take Stephon Diggs because or some other, you can stack a team still without the quarterback. It doesn't have to be. It's just how the draft falls to you. But make sure that, if you took Lamar Jackson, you just fucking load up on that team most likely. Like, unless some people are going to get stuck with crapola quarterbacks. Don't stack those. Don't stack Rivers.
But by the way, you could do these leagues with just you and 3 other friends, four people, and just do like a 2 quarterback league. So if you want to do these fantasy postseason leagues too, get 3 friends together to start 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 4 receivers, 2 tight ends. You could do it, man. I highly recommend. This is one of my. I love this. Just the only thing I love more is the NCAA tournament bracket, but for fantasy outside of DFS, the postseason stuff is a lot of fun.
Or call Sez and he'll join your league.
No problem.
He'll be in. He'll take your money. And by the way, John has never said no to any league that we've ever proposed, ever. I've never heard the word no out of John. He will do and he has so many of them he can't pay attention to.
I don't. Yeah, but that's why I like these, because that's it. I draft it and then I never look at it again.
So good luck everyone in the fantasy postseason. Get in one of these leagues. Get in, play some best ball. Get your DFS action going as well. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We're going to be back with the full Geeks Vegas lines week wildcard weekend edition, where we're going to actually take a look at this week's games, this week's matchups. Some very, very clear stuff going on this week. And if, John, you could just point me to the 2 running backs I need to use for the nuts, then I'm pretty confident I can win a lot of money. I will need your help on that, so let me know. We'll talk about that on the Geeks Vegas Line show coming up shortly.
got the best coaches in the game. We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets, casket.